Hey everyone, Rusted here. Welcome to my second channel. This is where I'm going to do some behind the scenes videos. Every time I upload a new song on my main channel, I will be doing a small behind the scenes video on this channel where I'll talk about the ideas that went behind the track and the instrumental and the chorus and stuff. This is my first one doing one of these, so I'm sorry if it's a bit rough and shaky. I'm not used to talking in front of a camera. I've made some set categories that I'm going to go over as I go through. So I'm going to start with the general ideas, the intro, and then I'm going to have the instrumental and then the chorus and then the verses, and then I'm going to hand it over to my editor to talk about the video portion of the raps. So first things first, this is about Elle from Death Note. Why did I choose Elle over Light? Why am I covering Death Note in general? Yada yada. Well, I'm covering Death Note because I really like Death Note. It's one of the best anime of all time. I have this format where I cover a new anime every third upload. I've had this one planned in the back of my head for a while, and I wanted to do either Elle or Light. In terms of who out of Elle or Light I would do first, I originally picked Elle because I like Elle as a character a lot more, and I had already represented him on Zach Boucher's rap battle, and I felt like I knew how to write about him. However, after I announced that I was doing the Elle rap, I felt like, oh, maybe it could be fun to do Light as well. So I put it to a poll on my YouTube channel. I thought it was going to be close, but Elle won overwhelmingly over Light, so I ended up just going with the Elle rap. In terms of the brainstorming phase where I thought of ideas relating to the Elle rap, I thought of something quite slow and methodical. I wanted to encapsulate the character of someone who is a careful thinker, and I wanted to get that across somehow in my raps and lyrics, as I will expand on later. And I think that's a good way to segue into... Here we are. This is FL Studio. This is what I use to make music. The first thing I did when creating this track was I put together this sound using Kinetic Metal in Contact. And that sort of drones on throughout the whole track. It sets an atmosphere for the track. I've added reverb and some other effects on it as well to give it space. On top of that, I then added some strings. Cellos played pizzicato. They are playing a climbing pattern, which is done to create stress and anxiety. Like Elle is onto you, is coming, you know, that sort of feel. The track itself then has piano and drums on top of it to add that sort of jazzy vibe to the track. In the chorus of the track, I'm also playing brass instruments to insinuate that sort of jazzy vibe that I wanted to go through, sort of a calm and collected, smooth detective. Other than that, there's simple things like bass. Overall, the instrumental aspect of this track is pretty simplistic. It's not overly complicated. I think it does enough to get across the character and not get in the way of the vocals at all. Speaking of vocals, in this track, I actually sing for once in my life. I'm not a singer, I'm not a very good singer, and you'll notice that I normally have other people sing in my tracks, but for this one I felt like I just had a melody in my head, and I didn't want to bug anyone else about it because it was quite a simplistic melody. I thought I would be able to pull it off. What I did here was I had my main vocal.
Think you'd like to go, I can solve this case, it's easy.
Laying that with compressions and EQ and reverb and such. To add extra depth and warmth to the vocal, I added a second vocal.
Think you'd like to go, I can solve this case, it's easy.
And on that vocal, I use a plugin called Alter Boy, which Fable recommended me, and I have pitch shifted it down an octave, and it plays at the same time with the vocal, and it adds, I think it just rounds out the character of the voice.
Think you'd like to go, I can solve this case, it's easy.
On top of that, I have two backing vocals.
I can solve this case, it's easy.
And they just add extra space and emphasis for those parts of the chorus. For the second part of the chorus, I have these singular vocal stabs.
Oh, you in the web of my mind.
For these vocal stabs, I wanted to add more color and interest to them, so I put a EQ on them where I cut out a lot of the highs and a lot of the lows and sort of only have the mid highs, so it has the effect of like it's coming out of a radio. Then on top of that, I added distortion to give it more warmth and just that kind of eerie feel to it.
Oh, you in the web of my mind.
Now at the lyric aspect of it, and I'm just going to go through a couple of these lines and how I put them together. What I normally do when I start writing lyrics is I put down a bunch of notes. I don't have the notes here right now, but they're all stuff about the character and generally what I want to mention. I plan out roughly what I want to say, but I just write my lyrics chronologically as I go along. The intro of this rap is a reference to Sherlock Holmes. It's a quote from Arthur Conan Doyle, which is, you know what they say when you remove all the impossible, all that remains is the truth, no matter how improbable. And I wanted to draw a parallel between Elle and Sherlock Holmes, the respective world's master deducer. And I think it applies to his situation as well, because he's removed all the impossible variants. And so even though the only thing that's left is, oh, he's killing someone with a notebook, that must still be the truth, even if it's improbable. I always struggle a lot of the times with how to start my tracks. Once I get into it, it's a bit easier. And that was a sort of easy way I had to ease into the track. Here's a line I like. I used it before, roughly, but you're not a god, you're a child with a kill list. It is actually something that I wrote in reference to the Netflix movie back in the day. It's a tweet I made where I said they made Light not this charismatic guy. They just made him this kid with a kill list. So I'm using it here as a way of Elle to talk down to Light, because Light is egotistical and thinks he's this great god of the world. But I'm just saying, no, dude, you're just a kid who happened to have a way of killing people. Here's a section that I had a bit of debate over, and if you're a Patreon of mine, you would already know this. But I had the line, you're messing with the prodigy, crumble your ideology, your sense of justice faker than a YouTuber apology. And I thought it was a really good line. The problem is, it's out of character for Elle to say. A lot of the times when I'm writing, I write in first person, I try to get into the character. And it's not something that Elle would say. Death Note set in 2003, before YouTube existed, so it's out of universe as well. But I really like the line. I was really debating whether or not to scrap it or keep it in. And in the end, the person who convinced me to keep it in was Dan Ball. I explained to him my dilemma and he was like, so what? And I was like, oh yeah, so what? It's my song. I could do what I like. In the second verse, here's another thing that I picked up from my rap battle with Zach. I wanted to hammer home the key point that even if Light thought he was doing good by killing off everyone who was evil, he still killed the FBI and people who are inherently innocent. I later go on to say that that's a self-inflicted ethical bullet. Like, he just shot himself in the foot. Then there's this whole thing. I wanted to like keep up pretense that Elle is lying, so articulating lies to survive. I'll be honest, our friendship is based on lies. Elle lies constantly throughout the series to everyone, not just the Light. The author has gone on to say that whenever Elle says the Light, oh, there's a 4% chance I think you're Kira, in his brain, he actually is thinking there's a 90% chance that he's Kira. He's just trying to put him at ease. Right at the end here, when I say, when I catch you, we can both lose our disguise. Obviously in reference to Light losing his disguise and then he's Kira, but also in reference to Elle losing his disguise. If Elle ever solved the Kira case, he probably would talk to most of the people that he solved the Kira case with again. He'd be like, job done, what's the next case? All the friendship and all the friendly pretense that he was putting around his actions was just to manipulate his co-workers, and I think that was a nice way that I could end the song. I didn't want to end it lyrically with his death. I know the video ends with his death, but I didn't want to end it lyrically with his death because this is from his point of view as a pro Elle rap, and I didn't really want that in here. A couple final points before I hand it over to Evan. I put that quote at the beginning of the video to showcase Elle's manipulative behavior and his ability to lie, and the fact that he's not a good person. The author has described Light as evil, but Elle as slightly evil. I wanted to deep dive into his psyche instead of just being like, I'm Elle, I'm gonna beat you, Kira, the rap.
Hey there, what's up internet? My name is Evan. I am the editor for Restage, and I go by Evanito sometimes. Here's what I did for this video to make it a little bit interesting. So it starts off with weird tones that Daniel chose. I decided that, you know, maybe choose some scenes that invoke this weirdness, because Elle is a very weird character, right? And I wanted to introduce him as just this weird character. So there's this whole like cool little psychedelic effect, like if you look at the chromatic aberration here on the edges with the red and like the green. That was actually Daniel's idea, but you know, it worked really well with these scenes. Like, this is chronicling his entire life, but I wanted to start off with his death. These scenes just encapsulate him as a character, and they're talking about his mind. This is what I figure is happening in his mind as he's dying, because these are the scenes from when he's dying. You know, I figured, hey, why not start with that, because the song is called My Mind. We get into the video, and it immediately starts with just introducing Elle. There's this little cool transition that I do there. which I thought was pretty cool because, you know, I think it just signifies that he has like a pretty sporadic mind. It's kind of broken. I figured the glitch is just like showcasing all the different elements of Elle. I started with his foot here because, you know, this was like the scene Elle was introduced in the anime. The only other special thing I'd say I did for this song is there's a really cool line that Daniel had.
Die, but your coward has led to you killing off the FBI. Now it's
So I thought this scene was really cool when Ray Penber is just dying on the ground and Light is just looking down at him. And I thought it was just a really nice, like, cinematic scene. And I think it works out really nicely here, especially with the door closing. And then this scene that it leads into. A lot of you probably didn't notice this, but I'll play it back right now.
off the FBI. Now it's over. A self-inflicted ethical bullet. Evidence, ammunition. Grab the trigger and pull it. Spill your
If you look at his lips, that was a happy accident that I was so happy with. Because I put the clip in place and it wasn't exactly synced up at first. And I was like, wait a minute, this actually works. It looks like he's saying these lines as he's walking, which is really cool for this scene. One thing I always start with when I'm doing these videos for Daniel is, you know, I have to find the footage first, right? And so for this video in particular, all of the scenes of Elle come from the Death Note Relight movie. It was just really useful because it's like an amalgamation of the entire series, right? Having to find each and every single episode of the show would be like a lot more difficult than just getting a movie that just has literally everything in it. So that just made this a whole lot easier. I'm really happy that you guys were kind enough to check it out. And yeah, I'll just give it back to you, Daniel. Bye.
I hope you like these videos. I'm sorry I can't go into a lot of depth about my stuff and it's a little brief, but I don't have a lot of time because I have to make a song every week and I wanted to do maybe 2 of these a week, one that comes out with the video and one that's for older videos that I just talk about them. Anyway, hope you enjoy this.